All right. Guten Morgen, Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Live Coding with Ryan. I once again forgot what episode we're on, but it's probably like 10 or something like that. But yeah, welcome back. So today we are going to get around to actually doing some test-driven development. A couple things are I'm planning to do a couple of things. So number one, I'll do a quick recap of sort of the difficulties that I was going through earlier. We'll talk a little bit about what you need to do in order to get test-driven development kind of set up with Kotlin. And then we're going to actually just write a bunch of unit test classes and try to just work through as many as we can until the hour is over. So hopefully I won't ramble for too long, but at the end of the day, I probably only need to show you a couple of different, how to write a couple different test classes, unit tests, before you'll get kind of the basic idea of what you need to do. So a couple of things. I do apologize. I'm a little bit groggy today. It's been a very, very, very busy week, and I was up early this morning writing, so my brain is already a little bit fried, but nevertheless, I will still do my best to try not to ramble too much. If I do start rambling like crazy, you have my permission today to give me shit in the chat, unless it's useful rambling. Then you can still give me shit, but yeah. I'm told that people sometimes enjoy my rambling. So, before we get started, as usual, I have to do the daily commercial. So if you enjoy what I do and would like to see me do it better, or you'd like to support the WiseAss community in general, which has quite fortunately grown to be larger than just me, then please do consider liking and following us on Google+, which however many of you actually use that, Facebook, Twitter. Sure, a few people use those, and also we have a Slack channel if you'd like to get some more direct help. Yeah, like I say, if you have questions which you can't really wait until my live stream Q&A, then do consider joining our Slack group. It's a really awesome community with some really talented developers, and I'm just damn proud of it, despite the fact that I've had very little to actually contribute, except for maybe bringing in new members. And yeah, as much as I would love to contribute to the Slack channel more, if I'm writing, it's probably going to be something to do with the book that I'm writing lately. Anyways, lastly, there are a couple of options if you would like to support WiseAss more directly. So we do have a Patreon page and a paypal.me link. So if you do want to throw me a couple bucks on Patreon so that I can get some better equipment, etc., then please do consider doing that. I do appreciate it. However, if you can't afford to contribute directly, that's totally fine. Just do me a favor, consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you watch one of my videos and you learn something, please do hit the like button. Consider sharing it with your friends, and that's basically it for our commercial for today. So, what are we doing? First off, let's just jump into the chat and see who's joining us. So we got Taha again, and Radek, which, that's quite a Slavic name. And, oh, so Radek just commented that Google apparently has a plan to shut down Google+. I don't know if that's true. I'm assuming that's true, but that's pretty hilarious because moments ago I literally just made a very subtle joke about the fact that no one uses Google+. So that's pretty hilarious. Thank you. Taha has also mentioned that it's the 11th episode, so I'm glad someone's paying attention to which episode this is. Episode 11. So just really quickly, quick question. When will my book be available? I don't want to give out too many details, but it should be available sometime in the early part of next year, and it is about building Kotlin applications, and that's about all I can say about it. So yeah, that's it. But I think it's going to be good. even if it's not good, my criteria for success when writing this book is just to be sure that I'm studying and writing almost every day, and I have managed to do that because there's a lot of different topics to cover with Kotlin, and one of the most important things is it's one thing to like write a book by basically copy pasting the documentation and rewording it, and there are people out there who have made a lot of money doing that kind of thing, but fortunately for I hope, as we'll see when the book actually gets released, if it does, it should, but hopefully I'll demonstrate that it's very important to understand with Kotlin what is going on under the Kotlin code itself, because a lot of it has to do with the compilation target of Kotlin, which is normally the JVM. And one of the cool things about that is if you understand how to decompile your Kotlin code and actually read the decompiled version when it's targeting the JVM, then you can actually learn a huge amount about how Kotlin works behind the scenes. And that's one of the things about it is Kotlin is so amazing at hiding all of this boilerplate annoying nonsense that we used to have to deal with. And, you know, one of the trade-offs of making things more convenient and hiding things is that sometimes things look like magic. So what I'm going to be focusing on with the book is to just try and explain, to basically to take the magic out of Kotlin in a good way, to demystify it, even though it is a very magical language. And with that, I would also like to mention that if you haven't seen the Kotlin keynote for 2018 with Andre Braslav, who appeared like he might have been tickling a little bit of vodka when he did that particular keynote, although I don't know if that's actually true, but he seemed like very excited Russian talking about, I'm just kidding. Andre Braslav is awesome. He's the lead developer of Kotlin, and I really enjoyed his keynote. So with that rambling, see, I'm already rambling. Let's get started and do some coding. So, couple of things. So hopefully most of you are familiar with how the live coding works as opposed to the live stream Q&A. So just really quickly, during the live coding, I will still try to answer short questions or questions that are directly related to what I'm doing. But if you want more random Q&A type stuff, then you actually need to watch my live stream on Sundays. So for example, the live stream I did yesterday. So during Sundays, I do a live stream Q&A where the focus is on teaching and answering questions. Yesterday was a crazy long episode. I live streamed for like an hour and a half, and I don't know if anyone's ever tried to do it, but to actually like teach people live about programming for more than an hour it messes my brain up a little bit. So that was a crazy episode, but anyways, what I'm saying here is, try to calm down and focus, Ryan. What I'm saying here is, yeah, I will try to answer questions, but that's not the focus of this show. However, at the end of the show, I usually stick around for 5 or 10 minutes to just answer a couple directly related questions. With that being said, let's get to coding some Kotlin. So I just wanted to start with where we left off last week. Already I've got someone asking about Flutter. I'm not on board the Flutter train, guys. I'm not on board that train yet. Kotlin's a lot. I prefer Kotlin, so stop asking me about Flutter. Anyways, I'm not dissing Flutter, but stop asking me about it. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do is just recap really quickly where we left off. So in the previous episode, let me just go to VCS. I'll go to local history, show history, bring that over to a visible view, and I'm going to find the history from a while ago. Let's say, okay, so this was the first. So this should have been the really old version. Is that correct? Let's see here. Just give me a moment. Yes. Okay, so at the end of the previous episode, I thought I had fixed a problem with my result wrapper. and you'll understand what this is as the show progresses. It's just a wrapper to wrap results. I like to give things reasonable names, and you know, it's a result wrapper because it wraps some kind of result. That's all it does. So what I did previously is I didn't have this bit of code in here, and this particular block was lighting up as red. So I fiddled around for like a half hour with my result wrapper class, and then I fiddled around with this little code block here, and then I finally managed to get it kind of what I thought was working by just casting it, which I should have kind of known better. But fortunately, a viewer who is actually here today noticed that this was not actually a proper solution. I would have figured it out eventually, but I do appreciate Taha doing me a favor and letting me know that I had not, in fact, solved the problem. Now, it turns out I did find the real problem later on, which I'll show you now. It wasn't solvable or solved by casting anything, and I did make some minor changes to my result wrapper, particularly this build function, but that actually wasn't the problem either. Pardon me. The problem is that, so I was calling this particular object here. It's actually a mock repository, as you can see up here. And what I was doing is I had actually messed up the interface. So this mock object is based on iWorkoutRepository, which is an interface. And using Mockito, I create a fake implementation of it. And I had written workout exception. And if I go back here, will that break it? Yeah, so this is what I was dealing with earlier. So I was looking at this signature and thinking, like, what the hell is going on? How is this the wrong type? Why is this always the wrong type? And the answer was kind of staring at me right in the face, but, you know, I'm not perfect. I don't always figure out the answer to the question instantly, but the one thing I'm really good at doing is I'm really goddamn stubborn and I never give up. So eventually I found out that this was the problem. So the problem with doing, here's what I basically did. So this, I call this a result wrapper. And if you're watching this, I would really suggest you start doing this. It really changes if you use RxJava or coroutines or any kind of asynchronous callbacks. A result wrapper is a way that you can wrap a data payload and have it capable of representing multiple different states. So it's one of the coolest little patterns I've ever seen, and I really suggest you adopt it. It's based on a functional construct, which is the either monad. I don't call it an either monad because that's a horrible name. Seriously, either monad. You know, programmers and their names, like, I get it, it's based on a mathematical concept called a monad, and I get it, but I'm not a mathematician, and, you know, most people explain functional program by diving into what a monad is, and it's just, yeah, anyways, I'm going to shut the hell up. I don't like that name. I call it a result wrapper. So what does a result wrapper do, or I'll kind of use their naming conventions. Just in principle, the either monad has a left value and a right value. It usually looks like that. These are type parameters. And so the left one, if I just double check what I'm saying, is an error case. So let's say L equals error case and R equals, we'll just say some value, which you can think of as like a success case usually. And so what I had done before is I had placed my successful type, my data payload, in the left side of my result wrapper, or either monad if you prefer that nomenclature. And that was also conversely causing this issue here. So to fix the issue, exception, workout. Now, also another quick note, I have actually pushed this code to the repository. So if you do want to follow along, you can actually start from where I am now pretty much, or just look at the code if you'd prefer to. So that's basically where we left off. So I'll just check the comment really quickly to see if there's any questions. Yes, so let me give you the link here. Someone asks if this code is available on GitHub. Let me just pull that up. Hopefully I've made it public. Yes, here we go. So the link should be in the description box, is it? Yep, the link is in the description box, but here it is. I'll post it to the chat as well. Okay, and with that, let's get back to coding. So, yeah, so basically I just explained that was where we left off on the previous episode. Now, off camera, I actually needed to do some fiddling around because Kotlin 1.3 just came out, which had some minor changes to the Coroutines API. And if you'll notice down here, we are unit testing coroutines. So that means I had to change things a little bit. They were good changes, and the good news is that coroutines in 1.3 is stable, which means we shouldn't have to do too many more of these little changes for the future. So what I needed to do in order to get these things working, this particular set of tests working, is something I talked a little bit about in the Q&A, but I'll just summarize it really quickly here. In our Interactor, and if you're wondering about what this stuff is, watch the previous Q&A episode because I gave an overview of this stuff. But in our Interactor class, which is kind of like our domain layer, essentially what it does is it basically wraps our calls to the repository in a suspending coroutine. So this is these are all coroutines. You need to consider them as such. And if you're kind of wondering what a coroutine is, it really is just a function that you can pause if you want to. It's more complicated than that, but that's what a suspend, if you're wondering what is this suspend keyword here, this basically creates like a wrapper. It wraps the rest of the function in a suspending coroutine, a suspending function, or whatever you want to call it. So in this particular case, we have sort of like a, let me just clear some stuff here. We have like a middleware class, a middle layer class, like a domain layer, and it doesn't need its own coroutine sort of scope. So we can actually, with this part of the application and even the back end, the repository itself, we can basically get away with just slapping on, often, if it's simple enough, we can just slap on this suspend keyword here, and then we don't need to worry about concurrency anymore, because this makes it into a coroutine. Now, when you want to test just suspending functions alone, there's a little bit of a process you need to carry out. So you're going to need to, so for your test classes, I've jumped into my WorkoutInteractor test class here. So what you need to do is the actual test function itself needs to basically be wrapped, or needs to use run blocking coroutine builder. So this is a coroutine builder if you've never seen one before. If you're curious about all this stuff, you need to go check out the Kotlin Coroutines X user guide. The official, it's on GitHub and it's sort of like an official guide on coroutines. But yeah, this is a coroutine builder. So it's basically going to make it so that all of this stuff in here functions within the context of a particular coroutine scope, as you can see here. What this is going to do is it's going to kind of simulate running our WorkoutInteractor's suspending function in the context of like a, let me give you an example. What I'm talking about is we kind of need to pretend this is a different application, Kotlin MVP Calculator. We kind of need to pretend that we're running this suspending function in the context of an actual coroutine scope. Now, outside of JVM tests, that would probably look like a presenter or something like that, or an activity or whatever, using its own coroutine builder and then having its own sort of coroutine context. So to simulate that in a unit test, we just basically slap this thing here. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. If not, I can try and explain it a little better. So there was a couple other things I needed to do to get the, for example, test my presenters in this other application, which aren't just suspending functions. But this is all we need to do for today, is just wrap our tests in a run block and coroutine builder. And very specifically, listen carefully, when you're doing this, testing just a suspending function, you need this unit type parameter. You need that. If you don't include this unit type parameter, you won't get a compile error, but, or what do you call that? Design time error. I guess you could call that a compile time would be after it gets compiled. So this would be like a lint error, I guess. You won't see an error up front until you actually compile the project, is what I'm struggling and failing to say. It'll say that get works. If I were to get rid of this and try to run this unit test, it would say get workout by ID successful should be void, is what it'll say. It'll throw an error, a compiler error. What we do is we add this type parameter here. And if you aren't sure, unit is kind of like Kotlin's analog to Java's void, and that's what unit will be mapped to in Java. Now, they're not exactly the same, but it's basically the Kotlin equivalent of void. So, with all of that preamble, that's basically what we needed to do, and I managed to get this little test running. So we'll just check really quickly. I'll just execute a test and show you how this kind of works. So I'm going to hit the play button over here and hit run WorkoutInteractor test. And as you can see, we have a lovely green bar, and that is exactly what we like to see. So the basic idea, I'm not going to summarize too much how unit tests work, but basically how they work is you create a real version of the class you want to test, which is in this case WorkoutInteractor. You call some unit, which, so here's the thing. A unit could be a single function, it could be a whole class, it could be a whole module. So the term unit test refers to a unit of code of varying size, if you've wondered why it's called a unit test. The unit means some unit of measurement of code, but it doesn't need to be one thing or the other. I would advise just testing functions, typically, although you can do integration tests and so forth. But for the most part, I just like to test things at the function level for the most part. I like small, well, sort of cohesive, highly cohesive unit tests. So we create the real thing, and we give it some test data. We call the method we want to test with some test data. In several episodes ago, I created all of that test data, if you're wondering how to do that. And then the last thing we do, we call the real object. We make sure to mock or use fakes for the objects which the class we're trying to test needs to talk to. So it's not going to be talking to a real workout repository implementation. It's going to be talking to a mocked one up here. So I hate it when it thinks I'm clicking and dragging when I'm just selecting, which is a clicking and dragging operation, but I think you know what I mean. Anyways, yeah. So we basically pretend we make like a fake version and then we give it a fake response, and then we test what our interactor does or what happens to our mocks with verify statements or assert statements. You can write like assert that or assert true and so forth. But for now we're using Mockito, and in this particular test case, all I want to make sure is that when I call interactor.getWorkout with this particular data, I just want to make sure that Interactor calls getWorkoutById on our fake repository object. So I'll ramble towards the end about why this is important, even though it might seem like a very trivial thing to do. But yeah, so this is the basic state of where we're at. The last thing I'll talk about, since I'm kind of giving a dissertation on unit testing here, even though I didn't want to, is I do also have this @before annotated method in my test class, and so that's where I create the mocks. You can see we annotate something with the mock annotation. We call Mockito annotations.initMocks, and that's what actually will create our implementation behind this thing. And then I also create up here the class that I want to test. So this will execute before any of the subsequent test classes fire. And that's important because if we don't do that, then we're going to get null pointer exceptions regarding our repository object, and we haven't even really created the interactor otherwise. So just a little bit of code reuse, essentially. So I'm just going to check out the chat really quick and run a quick commercial break, and then we'll get to actually writing some code. If you've enjoyed the show so far, please do me a favor and hit the like button down below. Okay, and we should be, oh no, ad's still running. Okay, so I have a quick question from Taha. So Taha asks, did I remove the iCoroutineContextProvider from the Workout Coroutine constructor? Workout Coroutine, you mean the workout? So I believe what you're asking, I think, is if I removed, I think I did, yeah. I think in the old version I had that provider. Let's see here. Yes. So Taha is asking if I removed this thingy right here. Oh, sorry. Let me switch to the code view. Taha is asking if I removed, so this is the WorkoutInteractor, and we're looking at the an old version of it. So yes, the old version did have this CoroutineContextProvider, but this thing is actually not necessary because the coroutine context will never be provided by this WorkoutInteractor. As far as I'm aware, I might, if it needs to be more complicated, I might actually need to provide it. But for the time being, you don't actually need to tell these suspending functions to operate on a particular coroutine context. That will be dictated, like I say, by whatever class calls the interactor. So eventually that'll probably be a, where's that presenter? Eventually that'll probably be like a presenter object, but we haven't obviously gotten to that. So that's actually why I got rid of that thing. I do use like a, I named it something different here. I do use like a coroutine dispatcher provider, blah, blah, blah. They love their big names. But yeah, we don't need to bother about that, so I did delete that. Okay, so let's get started just hammering out these super easy to figure out unit tests. This is not going to be very complicated code, famous last words. So I already got started writing part of them. Let me just figure out what's going on here. Okay. Cool. So we're going to start with some basic code coverage. So what do I want to kind of test here? I want to test when things go right and when things go wrong. Now, if I need to be more specific than that, I can be, but we're testing really simple methods here, or functions. Sorry, I'm so used to thinking in Java. So generally speaking, if I want decent code coverage, I'm going to want a unit to be tested in a successful state or a unsuccessful state or a loading state if that's appropriate. But I think I can get away with actually creating loading objects in the presenter instead of the use case. So we'll see about that. I haven't actually implemented that, but I hope that's the case. Doing something similar to RxJava's start with operator if you've used RxJava. So let's, that was a good voice crack. Let's fix this thing up. So I'm just going to copy and paste over because this is the old messed up implementation. So let's just slam that in here. Now you have to be kind of careful when you're just copying and pasting your unit tests, because if I were to run this, it would pass, but it would not be a well-formed test because I wouldn't actually be testing the failure case. So instead of returning a result, we're going to do something different. So I'm going to type throw. Let me just make sure I'm going to write this correctly here. If I don't, I won't forgive myself. So we're going to, let's see. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to say throw an error. Now, I've gone ahead, let's just jump to somewhere else because this is related. In the domain module, I've added another package and a file called error.kt. So what I've done is, instead of just throwing exceptions, I've created my own sort of, for lack of a better term, base error class, a sealed class in this case. And what I'll do is, as I need them, I'm going to add different, I think that can actually be an object, can't it? Yeah, these should actually be objects. I'm creating subclasses of my error class which have specialized messages. Now, if I was worrying about localization, I might not want to just hard code these things up here. You'd probably want to use like string resources from XML. But English is a pretty popular language at this point, and I'm not super concerned about that this early on. It's always good to localize if you can, but I'm not really bothered about it with this application because it's my application, and I'm going to do what I want with it, basically. But yeah, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to return a specialized error. So this is actually going to change the way that I actually build this test. So when the ID is a failure, that's basically a way of saying test case for when an ID is malformed for some reason. So I actually often will have a, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it that, I don't think I'll do it that way. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. This is live coding, so it is what it is. So we're going to say throw error dot, what have we got here? Error dot, let's say, so I want to represent in this case like an IO device failure, not just a record not found. So let's say get workout by ID failure, that's an adequate name. I need to figure out, there's a way to wrap these things in like, what's that stupid key? I think you can do something like this. and then you can, if I recall correctly, yeah, you can actually totally like alias the shit out of these things. Get workout by ID failure. I'm glad I'm glad I was able to figure that out the first time, because I've never actually done that before. But so this is not like a quotation mark, it's that weird, it's under the tilde key, TILDE, on most keyboards. And it'll allow you to kind of give some more descriptive names here. Anyways, as you can see, I'm rambling. Let's go to error dot. Why is it not auto-completing? That's annoying. Record. Is it because it's not public or because it's in a different package? Let's see, object. So record not found. IO device failure. Okay, so it looks like either this needs to get imported or it needs to say public. Is that it? Let's see, internal. Okay, is it importing the correct error? Huh. Well, we'll see how she goes here. It's not recognizing my error class. I guess internal might not actually work. Okay, so why is it not importing my error class here? Okay. And IO device failure. And that doesn't need that. Okay. So I have no idea why it didn't just automatically import that, but okay. Cool. So hopefully that'll work. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to just make sure if I throw a particular error, how does it kind of handle that? Now, I got to think about this for a moment. So in this test up here, since I'm pre-programming a particular response, a success response, I don't actually really care to look at the result which this interactor returns, because that's going to be basically entirely dictated on the repo itself. So in that case, I'm only concerned about testing that my interactor class does talk to a repository object in the success case. So I'm kind of wondering if I should do it a little differently down here, because I don't want to just make sure that So this is where we get into the interesting aspect of using this interactor. So I want to keep this thing here because eventually I will integrate this application to be cloud-based as well. So I will need pretty extensive unit tests in order to coordinate that logic. For the time being, my WorkoutInteractor class is basically just a layer of abstraction over the various repositories that will exist within the data layer of the application. So for now, I don't actually need, what I'm saying is I don't actually need to do this, I believe. So this is what I thought I was originally going to have to do, would be to say val result equals this, and then say when result is, which is equivalent to checking for like a type comparison. When result is result dot value. Sorry, when that's not the way that you write a when clause. When Just give me a moment here. My brain's unfortunately notoriously poor at remembering syntax, so you'll have to bear with me. That's one thing I was not genetically gifted with, is a good mind for that kind of thing. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm literally just looking up how to actually structure a when clause, not because I don't know what it is or how to use it, strictly because I actually forgot how to write it, which happens all of the time for me. Okay, there we go. So when result, I actually basically got it right, is evaluation, oops, this is actually just result.value, do this, is result.error, no, result.what? Error, it is error, screw you, you stupid IDE. I'm just kidding, I love Android Studio. Okay, so here's what I actually was thinking I was gonna have to do, is to check whether or not the response from the repository is successful or not. I think I should still do that. This is one of the difficulties of the balance between over-architecting and pragmatism. So if I don't actually need to check this if a given interactor's function just talks to, say, for example, a workout repository object. Because I can actually just pass this result straight to the presenter and let the presenter render either the value or the error state. However, if we have, oops, that's not what I wanted to do exactly. Let's say I do this. Hopefully this will work. Yep. Let's say I were to have something like this set up here. So local workout repository, remote workout repository, then I most certainly would want to have this kind of setup here, because that's entirely the point of having the interactor, is to kind of have a back-end decision maker when it's necessary. So as you can see, this is kind of the dilemma I'm facing right now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have to face the fact that down the road I'm going to have to refactor my unit tests, but for the time being I'm not actually going to bother double checking to see whether this response is successful, because as I just said, for the time being, until I actually create a remote workout repository, I can actually just handle this in the presenter without extra code as far as I'm aware. So I'm going to undo the changes I made here. That was just to show you what I was talking about. I'm not going to have this when clause or record this result. And we're actually just going to pretty much relay the error to the presenter, like a football or something. What we would call football in North America, but in other parts of the world I think they call it hand egg, which is more geometrically correct. So yeah, basically what I'm telling you here is this test is basically pointless until I actually check for an error case. So you know what, I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to comment it out. And what we are going to do is we'll create at least just one test case for each function, and that should suffice for now. We can always go back and add more if we need to, but as you can see, you know, the answers aren't always so clear-cut here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my WorkoutInteractor. I'm going to basically take this class and bring it over to the side, and then I'll write a bunch of unit tests, and then we'll try to get them working and functioning, and hopefully by the end of that, hopefully it won't take too long to get all of these things written. So I'm just going to focus on hammering out some code, and let's get this shit done. Okay, so did I? Yes, I did that. Okay, so the first one we tested, get workouts by ID successful. I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know what this is called, but I'm going to use that. And we'll just kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay, so for this one, we're going to say update workout successful. Let's copy the prettier version. Okay, and then we have delete. Whatever, I won't be too picky about my writing. Get workouts by day. Geez, I'm like capitalizing everything all weird. Okay. And then we've got get workouts by month. Okay. There's going to be some TDD in action. Okay, and those are all of the, as you can see here, all of the classes that I need to test. So the next step in test-driven development is to run the tests just to make sure that they are well formed. However, they should all fail except for the one that I already got working properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit this run button here and we'll see what happens. Okay. Let's see here. So the tests are all well formed. They're all passing because I'm a goof and I just copy and pasted all of the implementations. So I'm actually going to, you know, basically break them just to make sure that I don't accidentally think that they're working properly. So let's just say this will return something silly, test dot, it's trying to get a workout, so we'll return a test modality, and so that should cause this test to break. Because remember, I don't want the test to break if the code isn't correct. And that's one of the ways you can screw up testing, is you can have tests that pass that don't actually verify what you want to verify. So that's kind of a minor point there, but I'm just going to go through and make sure that these are not passing anymore because they are not consistent. Oops. Let's do that in a more consistent way. I'm trying to get this done quickly, so I'm really in copy paste mode here, which is a little more frantic than I would normally bother with. Okay, so let's run this again, and I only want the test which actually reflects the implementation to pass. And we've got errors. That's perfect. That's what I wanted. What is this saying here? Yeah, so this needs to be a test workout. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay, that's what I want to see. So as you can see down here, we've got our one test working and all the others are not working. And so the other thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we're calling the right method for each function. So update workout is going to be interactor.updateWorkout, I believe. And let's just bulk change them, which is, so I'm kind of doing this quickly and kind of bulk building these things, but I would normally be a little more careful about what I'm doing. I'm just really trying to rush here, to be honest, because I've only got a couple minutes left. But Yep, so we've got update workout, we've got delete workout, and then we've got, let's see here, get workout. So this will be get workouts by day. Then we've got get workouts by month. Okay, cool. So we're calling the correct unit now. So let's just run another test now that we're calling the correct unit. Actually, that won't compile because I need to fix this stuff. So the problem here, so this is test-driven development in action. So as you can see here, I want to be, what is this thing expecting, a workout? Okay, so here's the key to actual test-driven development. You build the implementation as your test in order to get the test passing. So this is kind of a weird way of thinking about coding, but essentially I'm going to use the errors that my tests are showing me as the actual way with which, as the way which I guide my build process of the implementation. So I know that when I update a workout, I'm going to need to pass in the workout object which I would like to write to the data sources. So I'm not going to pass in a workout ID. I'm going to make sure that I pass in a workout object. I believe that's what I call it. Yes. Now it's saying that this is not working. Too many arguments, which is telling me that update workout in the current implementation doesn't have any parameter. I'm going to click on here. Hopefully this will work. I'm going to hit Alt-Enter. And then it's going to give me the option, add parameter to function update workout. This is how I let the IDE do a lot of the heavy lift, not heavy lifting, but some coding for me. So I'm going to click on that. And let's look at what that did. So if I jump back over to my WorkoutInteractor, as you can see here, it's misspelled horribly. That should just be workout. But it did actually add that in. And so let's run our test again. The test isn't going to pass, but we've already changed the implementation. And this is kind of the process of test-driven development. It's screaming at me because, okay, let me just fix these so that the other ones so that it's compiling, and we'll just have to do this in this convoluted way. I apologize, but I think you're hopefully still learning the basics here. So delete workout also is not expecting a parameter at the moment. And the way that I'm verifying that is I'm clicking in here and I'm hitting Control-P. Now, I don't need to pass in a whole workout object to delete it. I'm actually fine just passing in the workout's ID. So here I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, add parameter. Boom, it's working. Down here, do we have the same thing going on? Looks like these ones actually aren't screaming at me, so that's okay. Let's go back here, and I want to try and run this test again. Hopefully it'll compile. It is compiling, and naturally it's failing. So here's where test-driven development, again, is kind of cool. So I run my test, I make sure that it's well-formed, and then it tells me what the current thing the next thing I need to do is. It's saying not implemented error. An operation is not implemented. Great, that's my cue to go to the implementation and to implement it. Now the way that I got it to spit out this little message here is by using Kotlin's, where is the class I'm trying to test? Is by using Kotlin's to-do function. See this? So if I call a function and it returns this to-do function, which has a return type of nothing, which is another special Kotlin type, then it's going to throw that error, not implemented error. That's exactly what I need. Okay, so now that I've got my test executing and it's telling me that I need to actually implement the thing that I'm testing, I'm going to actually do that. Let's hop into that particular class. And so what we're going to say, which one was I testing? I forgot. Update workout. as you can see, I forget like stuff like that instantly. So we're going to say return repository, workout repository dot update workout, and we're going to pass in workout. Now, as you can see, once again, we have something red here, unresolved reference. So that actually means that I haven't implemented this particular function in the repository. So what I'm going to do next is, with that, I'm going to again hit Alt-Enter, and then I'm going to go create abstract, let's see, we'll want an abstract function, I think. Yeah, let's just go ahead and create the abstract function, because that should be the one that's overridable. Yep. Hold on a minute, let me pull up. We don't actually need it to be abstract. Yeah. It just, needs to be another function of the interface, so I'm not sure why it defaulted to abstract there, but that's okay. So, it's supposed to do a better job of the code completion. Let me just try that again. As far as I'm aware. Where is this thing? Why does it, what is it doing? What are you doing? It thinks I hit Control F6 up here, and that's annoying. Please stop ruining my writing. Oh, my IDE is freaking out. That was bizarre. Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna, just give me one moment. I'm gonna pull this in. My IDE basically, granted, it's probably my fault, but my IDE basically just shit itself and screwed up my signature here, so I'm gonna have to correct that. Let's go to local history, show history. Granted, I probably just accidentally clicked something, so it's ultimately my fault, but let's just copy that. Get rid of this horse shit, pardon my language. And there we go. Okay, that's fixed. Now we're going to go back to TDD, Alt-Enter, create a member function. Now, okay, this is, yeah, that's more like it. Thank you. Good. This is the kind of automatic code generation that I actually wanted here. Now, I don't actually... Ooh, that's it. Oh! Now, I didn't tell it to place the workout type in the wrong spot, but it appeared to do that automatically. So that's something I'll really have to watch out for, because maybe that's what happened before, is I automatically generated the method, and then it screwed it up for me. In fact, I'm now positive that's what happened before. Interesting. So something to note. Be very careful with auto-generating type parameters, because I'll need to think about why it did that, but by default it actually screwed this up. So that's an interesting little hiccup, which I might actually have to look into a little bit. And I don't know, I don't recall opening those up. Okay, cool. So, oh, it's because it's screwed up here. So still my fault, never mind. All of these are still screwed up. Herp-de-derp-derp. Oops. Okay, so totally my bad. I apologize for bad-mouthing the code generation. That was still my fault. Okay, so let's go back to our test class, wherever the hell it has disappeared to. And let's see if that test is working. Actually, before I do that, let's just make sure I'm verifying the right thing. So I'm asking it to update a workout, and I'm verifying that actually update workout was called. And then update workout returns, should return a workout object, and it should be basically the same one that I pass into it. So let's go ahead and put that in there, and we'll see if that test case runs. Boom! Green light. All right. So I think you get the basic idea. So I'm going to do the rest of these off camera, and I'll just stick around for a couple minutes to answer questions because it is already 11. But hopefully that was a decent introduction and overview of test-driven development using Kotlin. And yeah, went a lot better than some other episodes of live coding I've done. Obviously, like, I didn't get a huge amount of work done, but hopefully I did a decent job of explaining things. So, let's have a quick look at the chat. Okay, Ameth. You keep asking me about Dagger 2. I talk about Dagger 2 all of the time on the live stream, so please just go look at like the previous, like any of the previous 4 episodes of the live stream Q&A, and you will find all kinds of talk about Dagger 2. I seriously talked a ton about it fairly recently. Now, I apologize that my content is a little disorganized and it can be hard to figure out what is where, but yeah, you keep asking me about Dagger 2. I'm not going to talk about it today. I may not talk about it next week, but I've already talked about it a whole bunch. So please just put in a little bit of effort. Go look at some older Q&A episodes. And you, like one of them, I think episode 56 or 55, I actually talked about Dagger. There's 2 episodes in a row, I think it was 55 and 56, where I literally talked about Dagger for like collectively an hour and a half. So yeah, go have a look. Oh, it's all good, man. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. You've been asking me about this a lot, which is fine. Anyways, so what do we got here? Let me just have a look. So Radek asks if I've tried Kotlin Makito. I have not had a reason yet to try it, although perhaps it's more optimized. I seem to be doing... I guess if I switch to Kotlin Makito, then I wouldn't need to use this character and that stuff. So I will look at that, but I haven't really needed to use it yet. It's probably better to switch to it, admittedly. Taha asks, if we wanted to have a remote and a local repo and wanted to get the locally stored data first, then update from the remote one, how to do so in the Interactor. So this is actually something I will be implementing shortly in a different open source application, so I'll be able to show you some code soon. But the basic idea is we would use coroutines. So what you could do is you could have, say, let's just pretend that these are 2 different objects. So we could say val result, we'll call this, so val local result equals workout repository dot get workout by ID, creation date, whatever, and val remote result and then what we could do, so you said we want to just get the local result first. So we could basically, so this is going to be the interesting part, is you would need to set up some kind of an observer pattern. And so you're going to like await the first result. and push that. And then assuming, so it depends on whether you make the local repository or the remote repository as the source of truth, the source of truth. But basically, in principle, what you would do is you would use coroutines or RxJava to coordinate both of these backend services. And then that's when you would want to start checking, like when local result, say, is result dot. I really wish it would help me out a little more with the code completion there. Thank you. Yeah. So you'd basically have some logic with when results. So if the local result returns and it's successful, then you would push that data to the presenter, and then you could await or join the results together. At that point, we're getting into specific implementation, but this is kind of how you would do it. And this is one of the benefits of both having an interactor in the backend so that the presenter doesn't need to do all this crap. But B, that is the benefit of coroutines, is you can write, this would happen asynchronously, and I could get it to happen, say, I could say like local result equals, I think I can just run blocking this shit. So I'm not saying do this specifically, I'm just kind of slapping in some pseudocode so you get a rough idea of what I'm talking about. But you could kind of have, you could slap this in like a run blocking coroutine so that this will execute sequentially. And then you could decide what to do based on the inputs from the remote and the local repository. And that's basically how you would coordinate the two. Now, the actual, let me just try not to ruin my work here. What do I need? Yeah, let's just get rid of that. So yeah, in principle, that's what you need to do. As far as the actual logic to do it, I'll hopefully be able to show that to you soon, but it's not easy. It's not simple. So I'm just following up. You're gonna be able. You should be able to do this using coroutines, Taha. Like you're saying, you should be able. I'm sure you're gonna be able to do this, but you should be able to take the first result, or to preferentially get the local result, and then just have the remote result fire as soon as it comes in. So there's definitely a way to do it. Unfortunately, I don't have exact code to show you. So but you should easily be able to do that. And that is how you should do that. Okay. Oh, and just again, Ameth, don't worry about it at all. Ameth apologizes. I'm not actually angry with you, bro. It's all good. Okay, so anything else? I see we have someone writing in Cyrillic. I wonder if Google Translate will help me. I'm just gonna translate. I think we might have. So Mr. Noise writes in Cyrillic, I just understood through Google Translate that according to Google Translate, the code is decent, but this person does not understand English, so that is okay. What I would say to you is Привет, меня зовут Ryan, спасибо. And that's like the extent of my Russian language. So looks like that's basically all the questions for today. And thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed that, please do me a favor and hit the like button down below if you haven't already. And yeah, that was an episode of Live Coding with Ryan. And yeah, got some work done. Got some test-driven development done. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next week. Peace out.